The conference hall fell silent when Ambassador Halayun stood up. Representatives from 40 different alien species watched her with curious eyes. Some looked amused. Others looked concerned. The Vraxel warlord Krenix sat in the center of the room, his 4 arms crossed over his massive chest. His skin was dark purple, and his eyes glowed red in the dim light. Krenix had just delivered his ultimatum. The Vraxel Empire would deploy their Shadow Legion to eliminate Earth's leadership. 10,000 of the deadliest assassins in 12 star systems. They would infiltrate the peace talks scheduled for next week at Terminus Gate Station. Every human diplomat would die. Earth would surrender or face total war. Hannah looked at the warlord without fear. She was a small woman compared to the massive aliens around her, but her voice carried clearly through the chamber. "We have received your message," she said calmly. "Earth declines your terms." Krenix laughed. It was a deep, rumbling sound that shook the floor. Other aliens joined in the laughter. They thought humanity had gone insane. "You decline?" Krenix leaned forward. "We send 10,000 killers. What will you send?" Hannah smiled. "We're sending 2. The laughter grew louder. Some aliens thought it was a joke. Others thought Earth had given up completely. Krenix shook his head in disbelief. 2 humans. Against my Shadow Legion? You have signed your own death warrant." "We'll see," Hannah said simply. She sat down and began packing her documents. The meeting was over. Halfway across the galaxy, 2 people received their orders. They had never met before, but both knew of each other by reputation. Every soldier in Earth's military knew their names. Minho Kong was in his apartment when the call came. He was cleaning his rifle, a habit he had maintained for 15 years. The weapon was custom-made, a railgun sniper rifle that could punch through tank armor from 3 kilometers away. He called it Last Breath because that's what his targets experienced when they saw the muzzle flash. Minho was 34 years old, with short black hair and calm eyes that never seemed to blink. He read the mission file twice, then stood up and began packing his gear. He didn't smile. He didn't frown. He simply prepared. Sora Han was training when her orders arrived. She was in a dark room, moving through combat forms that had been passed down for centuries. Her body was covered in a thin layer of sweat. 2 vibroblades hung from her belt, humming softly with contained energy. She stopped mid-movement when the message appeared on her neural implant. She read it while standing perfectly still. 10,000 enemies. 1 week. No backup. She closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them. "Finally," she whispered to the empty room. "Something interesting." They met on the stealth corvette Silent Dawn 12 hours later. The ship was small and fast, designed to slip past enemy sensors. Minho arrived first, carrying his rifle case and a single backpack. He nodded to the pilot and moved to the cargo bay to check his equipment. Sora arrived 20 minutes later. She wore a black combat suit that seemed to absorb light. Her 2 blades were strapped to her back. She walked silently through the ship, her footsteps making no sound. When she entered the cargo bay, Minho was examining a hologram of Terminus Gate Station. "You're the Ghost Blade," Minho said without looking up. "You're the Reaper," Sora replied. They studied each other for a moment. Minho saw a young woman with sharp eyes and scars on her hands. Sora saw a man who moved with absolute economy, wasting no motion or energy. Both recognized a fellow professional. "I work alone," Minho said. "So do I," Sora answered. "Then we have a problem." Sora moved closer to the hologram. "The mission is the only thing that matters. We can hate each other after it's done." Minho almost smiled. "Fair enough." They spent the next 6 hours reviewing intelligence reports. The Shadow Legion was already on Terminus Gate. They had infiltrated over the past 3 months. disguising themselves as merchants, workers, and travelers. The station housed 50,000 civilians and would soon host Earth's entire diplomatic corps. It was the perfect trap. The Shadow Legion operated in cells of 100 assassins each. Each cell had a master assassin as leader. These masters were centuries old, trained from birth in the art of killing. They had never failed a contract. The Vraxel had complete confidence in them. "They've mapped every corridor," Minot said, pointing to the data. "They know every ventilation shaft, every access tunnel, every blind spot in the security system." "They think they have the advantage," Sora said. "Don't they?" Sora's eyes gleamed. "They think they're the hunters. They've never been prey before." The Silent Dawn docked at Terminus Gate 30 hours later. Minho and Sora entered through a cargo airlock, dressed as maintenance workers. They carried toolboxes that contained their weapons. Station security barely glanced at their fake credentials. The guards were bored, used to processing thousands of workers every day. Once inside, they split up. Minho headed for the upper observation levels. Sora disappeared into the crowd, moving through the commercial district like smoke. She activated her neural implant and began scanning security feeds, biometric sensors, and communication traffic. The implant fed data directly into her brain, showing her patterns invisible to normal eyes. Within an hour, she found them. The first cell was positioned in the commercial sector, spread across 6 different levels. They were good at blending in, but they all had the same micro-expressions, the same scanning behavior, the same body language. To Sora's enhanced perception, they might as well have been wearing signs. She sent the coordinates to Minho through an encrypted channel. Then she began moving toward the industrial sector, where another cell was hiding. Minho received the data and climbed to the observation dome. It was a massive transparent structure that gave visitors a view of the surrounding space. Stars glittered in the darkness. Ships moved in the distance like fireflies. Minho ignored the beauty. He assembled his rifle and checked the scope calibration. Last breath was 3 meters long when fully assembled. The barrel was reinforced titanium alloy. The scope could track targets through walls using thermal and electromagnetic signatures. Minho lay down on the dome's maintenance platform and began his calculations. Wind speed from the life support system, gravity fluctuations from the station's rotation, the curvature of his firing arc, the thickness of glass between him and the commercial sector 3 kilometers away. He fed all the numbers into his mind, adjusting for every variable. Through his scope, he watched the assassins. They sat in cafes, browsed shops, walked through crowds. They thought they were invisible. They thought they were safe. Minho exhaled slowly. His finger touched the trigger. "Let's begin," he whispered. The first shot cracked through the observation dome at exactly 0800 station time. 3 seconds later, a master assassin dropped dead in a cafe, a hole through his skull. The bullet had traveled 3,247 meters, passed through 2 layers of reinforced glass, and struck with perfect precision. The hunt had begun. 17 shots in 30 seconds. 17 dead master assassins scattered across the commercial district. Each shot came from a different angle, making it impossible to trace the source. The Shadow Legion members in the area froze in confusion. Their sensors detected no shooter. Their thermal scans showed nothing. The bullets seemed to come from nowhere. Panic spread through the first cell like poison. They had never been hunted before. For centuries, they had been the predators. Now, someone was killing them with casual precision, and they couldn't even see their enemy. Minho watched through his scope as the survivors scattered. He could have killed more, but that wasn't the plan. Terror was more valuable than body counts right now. He disassembled his rifle and moved to a new position. By the time station security arrived at the observation dome, he was already gone. While chaos erupted in the commercial sector, Sora reached the industrial zone. This area was filled with factories that produced ship parts and electronic components. The machinery was loud, providing perfect cover for infiltration. She moved. Through shadows between the massive machines, her optical camouflage, bending light around her body. The second cell had fortified themselves in a recycling plant. They had sealed all the entrances and posted sentries at every access point. Thermal sensors covered every approach. Motion detectors filled the corridors. It should have been impenetrable. Sora smiled in the darkness. Impenetrable was just another word for predictable. She climbed into the ventilation system through an exhaust port that the enemy had dismissed as too small for infiltration. They were right. It was too small for most people. But Sora wasn't most people. She compressed her body and slithered through the narrow shaft like a serpent. Her bones were flexible from years of training. Her breathing was so controlled that the air sensors never detected her presence. Inside the plant, 15 sentries guarded the perimeter. They were veterans, alert, and disciplined. Their weapons were loaded with armor-piercing rounds. Their armor could withstand small explosions. They communicated through silent hand signals, never speaking aloud. SORA dropped from a ceiling vent behind the first sentry. Her blade moved faster than thought, cutting through the gap between helmet and armor. The sentry died without a sound. She caught his body before it hit the ground and lowered it gently. The other guards never noticed. One by one, she harvested them. A blade through the throat, a strike to the base of the skull. Each kill was silent and perfect. The sentries started to realize something was wrong when they noticed their comrades weren't responding to check-ins. But by then, it was too late. The darkness had already claimed them. The cell commander was in a reinforced control room with 14 elite assassins. They monitored dozens of screens showing security feeds from around the plant. They saw their perimeter guards standing at their posts. They didn't realize they were looking at recordings that Sora had looped through the system. SOR. I stood outside the control room door. It was solid titanium, sealed with magnetic locks. Breaking through would be loud and slow. She needed a different approach. She accessed the environmental controls through a maintenance panel. The system was complex, but her neural implant made short work of the security protocols. She redirected the life support flow, closing the vents in the control room and opening the sedative gas, reserves meant for riot control. The assassins inside started feeling drowsy after 3 minutes. After 5 minutes, they were stumbling. After 7 minutes, the first one collapsed. The commander realized what was happening and tried to override the system, but Sora had locked him out. One by one, they fell unconscious. Sora waited another 10 minutes to be certain and opened the door. The assassins lay scattered across the floor, their weapons useless in their slack hands. She moved through the room methodically, checking each body. Some were still breathing. She made sure they stopped. When she finished, she sent a status update to Minho. 2 cells eliminated. 327 confirmed kills. Not bad for the first day. Minho responded with his own count. Adding her numbers to his, they had eliminated over 400 assassins in less than 48 hours. At this rate, they would complete the mission ahead of schedule, but the Shadow Legion was adapting. Krenix received reports of the massacres with disbelief. His most elite killers were being slaughtered like children. The human operatives moved like ghosts, striking from impossible positions and vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. He sent orders to all remaining cells. Abandon stealth protocols. Go active. If they couldn't complete the assassination mission, they would force the humans to reveal themselves by threatening civilians. Sora intercepted the new orders through her neural link. They're changing tactics, she told Minho over their encrypted channel. They're going after civilians now. Where? Minho was already packing his gear. Residential Sector 7. They've planted a bomb in a school. 20 minutes until detonation. Can you disarm it? Not from here. We'll have to go in person. It's a trap. Of course it's a trap. Sora was already running through the industrial corridors. That's why they'll never see it coming. They met at the residential sector access tunnel. Minho had switched from his sniper rifle to a shorter assault variant. At close range, he would need different tools. Sora checked her blades. Both hummed with full power. How many? Minho asked. 50, maybe more. They're waiting in ambush positions around the school. And the children? Still inside. They're being used as bait. Minho's jaw tightened. Then we go through them fast. They split up at the entrance. Minho took the main corridor, drawing attention. Sora slipped through the maintenance tunnels, heading for the bomb. The ambush started the moment Minho stepped into the corridor. Energy bolts filled the air like angry hornets. He dove behind a support pillar as the walls exploded around him. 50 assassins had clear firing lanes. They thought they had him pinned. Minho switched his rifle to automatic fire and leaned around the pillar. His weapon roared, spitting magnetic slugs at hypersonic speeds. 3 assassins dropped before they could take cover. 4 more fell as they tried to change positions. Minho's aim was mechanical, perfect. Every burst hit center mass. Every target fell. The assassins tried to flank him. They moved in coordinated squads, covering each other with suppressing fire. But Minho had spent 15 years in combat zones. He knew every trick, every tactic. He read their movements before they made them. When they went left, his bullets were already there. When they charged right, he was waiting. Meanwhile, Sora reached the school. The bomb was in the basement, surrounded by 10 elite guards. They expected an approach from the main entrance. Sora came through the ceiling. She dropped into the middle of their formation like a falling star. Her blades flashed in the fluorescent light. 2 guards died before the others realized she was there. The remaining 8 opened fire, but she was already moving. She flowed between their shots like water, her enhanced reflexes reading bullet trajectories before they fired. Her first blade took an assassin through the eye slit of his helmet. Her second blade opened another's throat. She spun, ducked, and struck again. The guards were skilled, but they fought like individuals. Sora fought like a force of nature. The last guard standing tried to detonate the bomb manually. Sora's blade took his hand off at the wrist. He screamed and fell. She stepped over him and examined the device. 2 minutes remaining. The bomb was sophisticated, with multiple redundant triggers. Disarming it properly would take an expert 15 minutes. Sora had 2 minutes, and she wasn't an explosives expert, so she did something stupid. She grabbed the bomb, ripped it free from its mounting, and ran for the nearest airlock. Minho! She shouted over the cone. Get down. Minho dropped flat as Sora burst into the corridor behind the enemy assassins. She was carrying something that blinked red. The assassin's eyes went wide with horror. She threw the bomb at them and dove behind cover. Minho grabbed her and pulled her into a side room. The explosion tore through the corridor like the fist of an angry god. The shockwave rattled their bones. Dust and debris filled the air. When the smoke cleared, the corridor was empty. 50 assassins had simply ceased to exist. Sora checked her armor. It was scorched but intact. Minho had a cut on his forehead from flying debris. That was insane, he said. That was necessary, she replied. They stood up slowly, checking for more enemies. The residential sector was quiet now. In the distance, they could hear the sound of children crying in relief. The school was safe. Minho looked at Sora with new respect. Not bad for a ghost. Sora smiled. Not bad for a sniper. They had eliminated another cell. But thousands of assassins remained. And now the Shadow Legion knew they were facing something truly dangerous. The real fight was just beginning. Over 1,200 assassins were dead. The Shadow Legion had never suffered such losses before. Their remaining members were terrified, jumping at shadows and shooting at phantoms. Minho and Sora decided to make things worse. They began leaving messages at kill sites. Simple words painted in luminescent spray across walls where bodies lay. 2 is enough. Humans don't surrender. You should have stayed home. The messages were written in 15 different alien languages, ensuring every species in the Shadow Legion could read them. The psychological effect was devastating. Assassins who had killed without mercy for centuries now felt fear. They started making mistakes. Some abandoned their posts. Others fired at their own comrades in paranoid confusion. The Shadow Legion was eating itself from the inside. SOR hacked into their encrypted communication network using codes she had stolen from dead master assassins. She played recordings over their private channels. The sound of her blades cutting through armor. The crack of Minho's rifle. The last screams of their fallen brothers. She played these sounds on repeat, day and night, never letting them rest. You're cruel, Minho observed as he watched her work. I'm efficient, Sora replied. Every enemy that breaks mentally is one we don't have to fight physically. Fair point. But Krenix was not broken. He was furious. His perfect Shadow Legion was being torn apart by 2 humans. The humiliation burned worse than any wound. He made a decision that would either save his reputation or destroy it completely. He deployed his personal guard. The Council of Blades. 7 master assassins who had served him for over 3 centuries. Each had killed thousands. Each was considered unbeatable in single combat. They were legends among legends, the deadliest killers in known space. The Council arrived at Terminus Gate on a stealth transport. Unlike the other Shadow Legion members, they did not hide among civilians. They took over an entire section of the station's maintenance level and began studying their prey. Their leader was called Vex. He was the oldest, with over 400 years of kills to his name. He reviewed every recording of Minho and Sora's attacks, watching frame by frame, analyzing every movement. After 3 days of study, he called a meeting with his 6 companions. The sniper creates chaos and draws attention, Vex explained. While enemies focus on him, the Blade Dancer infiltrates and eliminates command structures. They work in rhythm, like a beating heart. To stop them, we must separate them. The Council designed 7 simultaneous traps across different sections of the station. Each trap was baited with false intelligence about Shadow Legion cells regrouping. The humans would have to split up to investigate all 7 locations. And when they did, the Council would strike. Sora fell for the first trap. Her neural implant detected what appeared to be a fleeing cell leader heading into the zero gravity. Manufacturing core. It was the perfect opportunity to eliminate a high-value target. She followed without backup, confident in her abilities. The manufacturing core was a massive open space filled with floating machinery. Workers used magnetic boots to walk on any surface. Sora activated her own boots and moved through the metal forest of equipment. She found the cell leader standing on a catwalk, seemingly unaware of her approach. Too easy, she thought. Way too easy. 3 figures materialized from behind manufacturing pods. Council members. They had been using advanced camouflage that even her implant couldn't detect. Sora's instincts screamed a warning just as they attacked. Fighting in zero gravity was completely different from normal combat. There was no ground to push off from, no stable platform for strikes. Every action created an equal reaction, that sent you spinning. The council members had trained for centuries in these conditions. Sora had maybe 100 hours of zero-G combat experience. She barely dodged the first attack. A blade whistled past her head close enough to cut a few strands of hair. She pushed off a nearby machine, sending herself tumbling through the air. The council members pursued like sharks, their movements graceful and deadly. Sora's optical camouflage flickered and died, damaged by a grazing hit. Blood leaked from a cut on her shoulder. Another wound opened on her thigh. She was being overwhelmed. These weren't normal assassins. These were masters of death itself. Meanwhile, Minho was pinned down in the docking bays. 4 council members had triangulated his position, using the arriving and departing cargo ships as mobile cover. Every time he aimed at one, another would fire from a different angle. His armor had taken 3 direct hits. His left arm was numb from a near miss. He tried to fall back, but they had predicted his retreat routes. They were herding him into a kill box with patience and precision. Minho realized with cold certainty that he was going to die here, unless he did something impossible. .OR, he floated in the manufacturing core, bleeding from 7 wounds. The council members circled her like predators, taking their time. They wanted to savor this kill. The famous ghost blade brought down by masters of the art. She closed her eyes. Her instructor's voice echoed in her memory. A ghost cannot be killed because it is already dead. When you face death, become nothing. Not even death can touch nothing. Sora stopped fighting. She shut down her neural implant, let her breathing slow to almost nothing, relaxed every muscle. She became absolutely still, floating in the zero gravity like a corpse. Her vital signs dropped so low that the council's sensors lost her signature. The 3 assassins paused, confused. Where did she go? She was right in front of them, but their instruments said she had disappeared. They moved closer to investigate. Sora's eyes snapped open. She moved without thought, without plan, becoming pure instinct. Her blade found the first assassin's throat before his brain registered the attack. The second died as he turned. The third managed to raise his weapon, but Sora's second blade pierced his eye. 3 seconds. 3 kills. The masters fell because they forgot a simple truth. Ghosts are already dead. In the docking bay, Minho made his impossible choice. A cargo ship was departing, its massive hull passing between him and 2 of the council members. They thought they were safe behind all that metal. Minho aimed at the ship. He calculated trajectory through 3 bulkheads and a fuel tank. The math was insane. The shot was impossible. That's why they wouldn't expect it. Last breath roared. The round punched through the ship's hull, through a corridor, through a fuel tank without igniting it, through the far bulkhead, and emerged on the other side. 2 council members dropped dead, holes through their chests. They never even saw the shot coming. The remaining 2 charged his position. No more clever tactics. Just pure speed and skill. Minho dropped his rifle and grabbed it like a staff. The weapon was heavy, 3 meters long, designed for distance shooting. But weight and reach were their own advantages. The first council member came at him with twin daggers. Minho swung his rifle like a club. The assassin was fast enough to dodge the main blow, but the rifle's scope caught him in the temple. Skull shattered. He fell. The last one was the most skilled. He got inside Minho's guard, his blade slicing across Minho's ribs. Pain exploded. Minho didn't retreat. Instead, he stepped forward, accepting the wound to deliver his own strike. He smashed the rifle's butt into the assassin's knee, breaking it. As the enemy fell, Minho brought the weapon down on his neck. Silence fell over the docking bay. Minho staggered, bleeding heavily. His left arm hung useless. His ribs were on fire. But he was alive. Barely. "Sora," he gasped into his comm. "Status?" "Alive," came her weak reply. "Barely? The council?" "Dead. All of them." "Where are you?" "Manufacturing core." "Can't walk." Minho started limping toward her location. His vision was blurring from blood loss, but he kept moving. 20 minutes later, he found her floating in the zero-G section, holding her wounds closed with bloody hands. He grabbed her and pulled her to the exit. They collapsed together in a pressurized corridor, both barely conscious. Station security found them an hour later, surrounded by the bodies of the Council of Blades. The medics couldn't believe they were still alive. 7 master assassins lay dead around them. 2 humans covered in wounds had accomplished what should have been impossible. As they were loaded onto stretchers, Sora reached out and grabbed Minho's hand. "We did it," she whispered. My NHO squeezed back. "We're not done yet." He was right. The body count stood at nearly 3,000 assassins eliminated, but 7,000 remained. And now they knew the humans could bleed. The real war was about to begin. Minho woke in a medical bay with tubes running through his arms. His entire body felt like it was made of broken glass. A doctor stood over him, checking vital signs on a holographic display. The doctor was a Talaxian, with blue skin and 4 eyes. "You should be dead," the doctor said matter-of-factly. "Your left lung was punctured. 3 ribs broken. Severe blood loss. Yet here you are, awake after only 6 hours. Where's Sora?" Minho tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. "In the next room. Similar condition. Also should be dead. Also awake too soon." The doctor shook his head. "Humans are strange creatures." Minho pulled the tubes from his arms, ignoring the doctor's protests. He limped to the next room and found Sora already on her feet, wrapping bandages around her torso. Her skin was pale, but her eyes were sharp. "We need to move," she said. "I know." They had been unconscious for 6 hours. In that time, the Shadow Legion had received new orders from Krennics. The warlord had finally accepted that assassination was impossible. If he couldn't kill Earth's diplomats, he would kill everyone. The remaining 3,000 assassins were converging on the station's reactor core. They would overload it and destroy the entire station, along with the 50,000 civilians aboard. The peace talks were scheduled to begin in 30 hours. If the reactor went critical, nothing would survive. Minho and Sora accessed the station's security network from a computer terminal. The display showed the Shadow Legion's movements in red. Thousands of red dots flowing toward the engineering decks like blood toward a wound. "We can't fight them all directly," Minho said. His rifle was in pieces, damaged beyond immediate repair. He had borrowed a standard assault weapon from station security. It felt cheap and light in his hands. "No," Sora agreed. "But we don't need to fight them all. We just need to stop them from reaching the reactor." "How?" Sora pulled up the station's architectural plans. "We turn the station into a weapon." They split up again, but this time with a coordinated strategy. Sora headed for the Environmental Control Center. Minho positioned himself at key choke points throughout the engineering section. They had 2 goals: delay the enemy, divide their forces, and kill as many as possible before the final stand. The Shadow Legion poured into the lower decks like a dark tide. 3,000 trained killers moving with single-minded purpose. They thought their numbers guaranteed victory. They were wrong. Sora reached the environmental controls and locked herself inside. Her fingers flew across the interface, her neural implant connecting directly to the station systems. She had complete control over life support, gravity, blast doors, and emergency protocols. As the first wave of assassins entered the engineering deck, Sora struck. Blast doors slammed shut, dividing the force into isolated groups. She vented atmosphere from specific corridors, sending hundreds of assassins tumbling into the void. She redirected superheated coolant through maintenance tunnels, turning passages into death traps. The assassins tried to override her control, but Sora had been a master hacker long before she became a warrior. Every attempt they made, she countered and turned against them. Minho watched from his position as groups of confused assassins stumbled into his kill zone. The assault rifle in his hands wasn't as powerful as Last Breath, but it didn't need to be. At this range, volume of fire mattered more than precision. He opened fire on full automatic. Assassins fell in waves. They tried to take cover, but Sora had calculated the angles perfectly. Every position they chose was exposed to Minho's fire. Every retreat route led into another trap. The Shadow Legion realized they were being slaughtered. They tried to fall back and regroup, but the blast doors behind them were sealed. They were trapped between a station that was trying to kill them and two humans who had become death itself. For 3 hours, the massacre continued. Minho changed positions constantly, always staying one step ahead of the enemy's attempts to flank him. His shoulder screamed with pain. His broken ribs ground together with every breath. But he kept firing, kept moving, kept killing. SOR manipulated the station like a conductor leading an orchestra. Gravity fluctuated, sending clusters of assassins floating helplessly into crossfire. Emergency force fields activated at precise moments, crushing enemies against walls. Fire suppression systems flooded sections with foam, blinding and choking the Shadow Legion. But the numbers were too great. Even with all their tricks, the assassins were slowly pushing forward through sheer mass. 500 remained, then 400. They fought like cornered animals now, desperate and savage. Minho fell back to his final position, the primary access corridor leading directly to the reactor core. It was a straight passage, 200 meters long, with no cover. A perfect killing field. He set up the borrowed rifle on a portable bipod and checked his ammunition. 300 rounds left. Not enough. Sora, he called over the comm. I'm at the final position. How many are coming? 500. Maybe more. They're all converging on your location. Then I'll stop them here. Minho, that's suicide. Probably. But they won't get past me. He paused. It's been an honor working with you. You're not dying alone, you stubborn fool. Sora, no. You need to protect the reactor from inside. If I fail, you're the last line of defense. She wanted to argue. Instead, she said, don't fail. I'll do my best. The Shadow Legion charged the corridor. 500 assassins screaming for blood, running toward one man and one gun. Minho watched them come. He thought about his parents, his friends, the countless people on this station who didn't know their lives depended on him. Holding this corridor, he squeezed the trigger. The rifle roared like thunder. Assassins fell. 5, 10, 20. Minho's aim was mechanical. Perfect. Every burst dropped a target. Every moment of reloading was calculated to the microsecond. The barrel of his rifle glowed red-hot from sustained fire. 50 meters. The enemy was closing. Bodies piled up in the corridor, but still they came. 100 dead. 200 dead. The rifle's cooling system started failing. Smoke rose from the weapon. 300 dead. 20 meters. Minho's ammunition ran out. He dropped the rifle and drew his combat knife. If they wanted the reactor, they would have to go through him physically. Then Sora arrived. She came from behind the enemy like a storm. Her blades flashed in the emergency lighting. She had abandoned stealth and tactics. This was pure violence, pure skill, pure fury. She cut through the rear ranks of the Shadow Legion like they were made of paper. The assassins panicked, caught between Minho's position and Sora's whirlwind assault. They broke formation, fighting individually instead of as a unit. That was their death sentence. Minho grabbed a fallen rifle and started firing again. Sora's blades never stopped moving. They fought with the desperation of those who refused to lose. Back to back in a corridor of corpses, 2 humans against an army. When the last assassin fell, both warriors stood in silence. Blood dripped from their weapons. Their bodies were covered in wounds new and old. But they were alive. How many left? Minho asked .SOR, checked her neural link. 5, no 6. The best ones. They made it past us somehow. They ran toward the reactor core, limping and bleeding, but moving as fast as their broken bodies allowed. They burst through the final door to find 6 master assassins already inside, setting charges around the reactor's containment field. The leader turned to face them. It was Velker, second in command to the Council of Blades. He had been watching and waiting for this moment. His eyes gleamed with hatred. "You killed my brothers," he said. "The Council, the Legion, all of them. For this you will suffer before you die." "Talk less," Sora said, raising her blades. "Fight more." Velker was faster than anyone they had faced before, stronger, more skilled. He moved like liquid death, his 4 arms wielding 4 blades simultaneously. The other 5 assassins attacked as well, coordinating their strikes with perfect precision. Minho's rifle was shot from his hands within seconds. Sora lost one of her blades to a disarming strike. They fought with everything they had left. Fists, feet, elbows, teeth. This wasn't beautiful combat. This was survival. Velker's blade pierced Minho's shoulder. The pain was white-hot. But Minho didn't let go. Instead, he grabbed Velker's arm and held on with all his strength, trapping him. "Now!" he shouted to Sora. Sora's remaining blade flashed. Once, twice, 3 times. Velker stumbled back, his eyes wide with shock. He looked down at the wounds in his chest and abdomen. He tried to speak, but only blood came out. Then he fell. The remaining 5 assassins hesitated. In that moment of hesitation, Minho and Sora struck. It was messy, brutal, nothing like the clean kills from earlier in the week. But when it ended, all 6 assassins lay dead. Minho collapsed against the reactor housing. Sora fell beside him. They had no strength left, no weapons. If even one more enemy appeared, they would die. But no one came. "Is it over?" Sora whispered .INIHO, checked his tactical display with shaking hands. The entire station was clear. 10,000 assassins. All dead. "It's over," he confirmed. "We won." They sat in silence, too exhausted even to celebrate. Outside, the peace talks would proceed on schedule. Earth's diplomats would walk safely through corridors these 2 had defended. And the galaxy would learn a lesson it would never forget. Never underestimate. Humans. The peace talks began exactly on schedule. Earth's diplomatic team walked through the corridors of Terminus Gate Station, escorted by nervous security personnel who still couldn't believe what had happened. The walls were scarred from weapon fire. Sections of the station were still being repaired. But the talks would proceed because 2 people had made it possible. Ambassador Haniyun stood before the Galactic Coalition Assembly once more. Every species in the known galaxy had sent representatives. They wanted to see the humans who had survived the Shadow Legion. They wanted to understand what kind of creatures could accomplish the impossible. Krennic sat in his chair, his 4 arms hanging limply at his sides. His eyes were hollow. His mighty Shadow Legion, the weapon that had terrified civilizations for millennia, had been destroyed in 7 days by 2 individuals. The shame was crushing. Hannah spoke with quiet confidence. You deployed your best warriors, 10,000 of the deadliest assassins ever trained. You gave them every advantage: knowledge of the terrain, time to prepare, numerical superiority. And we sent 2 soldiers on a Tuesday morning. She let that sink in for a moment. The aliens shifted uncomfortably. Earth does not seek war. We never have. But we will not bow to threats or intimidation. You need to understand something fundamental about humanity. We have billions of people on our world. Millions of them are soldiers. Thousands of them are as skilled as the 2 who stopped your legion. And every single one of them will fight to protect what they love. A representative from the Thaler Confederation raised a tentacle. But how? How did 2 defeat so many? What technology do you possess? Hannah smiled. No special technology. Just training, determination, and something you might not understand. We call it stubbornness. When a human decides something must be done, when we accept that we might die trying, we become very difficult to stop. She pulled up a holographic display showing the statistics. 10,000 assassins eliminated. Total human casualties, 0. The numbers were impossible, yet documented and verified. Some of you laugh at us because we're younger than your civilizations. We haven't conquered star systems. We don't have ancient empires. But we have something you've forgotten over your long years of existence. We remember what it means to survive. Every human carries the memory of predators, our ancestors faced with nothing but stones and sharp sticks. We are descended from creatures that refused to become prey. That instinct never left us. Krenix finally spoke, his voice bitter. What do you want? Tribute? Territory? You have earned the right to demand anything. We want nothing except to be left alone, Hannah replied. No tribute, no territory, just peace and respect. If you can give us that, we can give you our friendship. But if you threaten us again, we will respond. And next time, we might not be so merciful. The Assembly voted unanimously to accept Earth's terms. The Vraxel Empire formally withdrew from the coalition in shame. Other species began reassessing their positions on humanity. Trade agreements were quickly drawn up. Defense pacts were offered. Everyone wanted to be Earth's friend now. Terror had given birth to respect. While the politics played out above, Minho and Sora recovered in the medical facility. They had been placed in a secure wing with constant guard. Earth wanted its heroes protected. But Minho and Sora wanted none of the attention. They want to give us medals, Minho said, reading a message on his tablet. His left arm was in a regeneration sleeve. His ribs were slowly healing with advanced medical technology. I heard, Sora replied from her bed. She was covered in bandages, looking like a mummy from ancient Earth legends. They want to throw a parade. Are you going? Are you? They looked at each other and both shook their heads. We were just doing our job, Minho said. Others would have done the same, Sora added. That's what I told them. They didn't believe me. A nurse entered to check their vital signs. She was young and kept staring at them with wide eyes. Can I ask you something? She said nervously. Sure, Sora replied. Weren't you scared? Facing all those killers? Knowing you might die? Minho thought about it. Yes, I was terrified every moment, but you still fought. Being scared doesn't mean you stop. It means you understand the danger and do what needs to be done anyway. The nurse smiled and finished her checks. As she left, she whispered, Thank you for saving us. 3 weeks later, they were cleared for release. Earth sent a military transport to collect them. The captain greeted them with a crisp salute. Commander Kong, Specialist Han, it's an honor. Just Minho, Minho said. Just Sora, Sora added. They were flown back to Earth for debriefing. The meetings lasted for days. Military analysts wanted to know every detail of the operation. Tacticians wanted to understand their strategies. Trainers wanted to incorporate their techniques into standard curriculum. Minho and Sora answered every question with patience. They demonstrated their skills when asked. They reviewed recordings and provided commentary. But they refused all offers of promotion or special recognition. "We don't want to be heroes," Minho explained to a frustrated general. "We want to be left alone. The galaxy needs to know humanity is strong," the general argued. "The galaxy already knows," Sora said quietly. "They'll never forget what happened at Terminus Gate. That's enough." Eventually, Earth's military accepted their wishes. Minho and Sora were granted extended leave. They could return to active duty whenever they chose, with their ranks and positions waiting. But for now, they were free. They said goodbye at a military spaceport. Minho was heading to his family's home in the mountains. Sora was traveling to a monastery where she had trained as a child. They stood awkwardly, not quite sure how to end their partnership. "I couldn't have done it without you," Minho finally said. "Same," Sora replied. "You're not bad for someone who shoots from 3 kilometers away. You're not bad for someone who prefers knives to real weapons." They both smiled. Then Sora did something unexpected. She hugged him. Minho, surprised, hugged back. "If you ever need backup," she said softly, "call me. Same to you." They separated and went their different ways. 6 months passed. The galaxy slowly adjusted to the new reality. Earth was no longer a minor power to be pushed around. Humans were treated with caution and respect. Trade flourished. Cultural exchanges began. The peace was holding. Then a new crisis emerged. The Kashan Dominion, a warrior race from the Outer Rim, issued a challenge. They claimed humanity's victory at Terminus Gate was luck. They sent 500 of their champion fighters to prove humans were not as dangerous as the rumors suggested. Earth's military command called an emergency meeting. How should they respond? Send a battalion? A full regiment? This was a chance to show their real strength. Ambassador Hannah had a different idea. She sent a message to 2 people, one in the mountains, one at a monastery. Minho was meditating when his communicator chimed. He read the message and allowed himself a small smile. His new rifle, Last Breath 2, stood waiting in its case. He had been wondering when he would use it. Sora was practicing blade forms when her message arrived. She stopped mid-movement and looked at her weapons. They hummed quietly, ready for action. She had been expecting this call. They met at the spaceport once again. The silent dawn waited for them, freshly repaired and upgraded. When they saw each other, no words were needed. They simply nodded and boarded the ship. The briefing officer was nervous as he explained the situation. 500 Kashin warriors, each one bred and trained for battle. They were waiting at a neutral space station, expecting Earth to send an army. "What are our orders?" Minho asked. "Stop them. Show them we're serious." "Just us two?" Sora inquired. "Unless you want backup?" Minho and Sora looked at each other. Sora's lips curved into a rare smile. Minho shook his head slowly. 500 is barely worth the trip, Sora said. "Wake me when it's something challenging," Minho added. The officer blinked in confusion. "You're joking, right?" They weren't joking, Dot. As the silent dawn departed Earth orbit, the officer turned to his colleague. "Should we send additional forces?" "Just in case?" The colleague pulled up footage from Terminus Gate, corridors filled with alien bodies. 2 humans standing victorious against impossible odds. "No," he said quietly. "I almost feel sorry for the Kashin." "Why?" "Because they have no idea what's coming for them." In the depths of space, the Corvette traveled toward its destination. Inside, 2 people prepared their weapons and checked their gear. They moved with calm efficiency, no wasted motion. They had done this before. They would do it again. Mino assembled his rifle and ran diagnostics. Every system showed green. Perfect.SOR sharpened her blades and tested her camouflage. Everything functioned flawlessly. They sat in comfortable silence, two professionals about to do what they did best. Somewhere ahead, 500 warriors waited, confident in their superiority. They would learn. The galaxy had already learned the lesson. Others were still catching up, but they would all understand eventually. Humanity didn't deploy armies against those who threatened them. Humanity deployed something far more terrifying. They deployed legends, and legends never die. They only grow stronger with each telling. In bars across 1,000 worlds, aliens traded stories about the Reaper and the Ghost Blade. Some stories were true. Some were exaggerated. But all of them ended the same way. Never threaten Earth. Because Earth will send 2 people. And 2 people will be more than enough. The Silent Dawn disappeared into the darkness, carrying death to those who had forgotten fear. Behind it, Earth spun peacefully, protected by its greatest weapon, not technology, not numbers, not firepower, simply humans being human, stubborn, determined, unwilling to yield. The universe was learning. Some lessons came easy. Others came hard. This one came written in the blood of 10,000 assassins and 500 champions who would soon join them. And humanity? Humanity just kept moving forward, 2 soldiers at a time, showing the galaxy what it meant to survive, to fight, and to win against any odds. Because that's what humans do.